Let's cross the studio. James Creedon with Media Watch. Good evening to you.
Hi, Mark.
Looking at online reactions to the protest movement in Chile, where, of course, people have been killed, and the UN is calling for an investigation.
That's right. So just a scan of some of the reactions coming through on social media. A lot of Chileans sharing scenes from the streets, and certainly the fatalities that have been reported. You can see a lot of brutality in some of the videos that are coming through, being shared online. This particular tweet, I won't show exactly what she said because there are expletives in it, but she's saying they are beating the bleep out of us. And it's, these are the kind of videos that this is the reality of what is happening on the streets of Santiago and elsewhere. Now, just to point out that it's not as simple as it might seem. Some are sharing videos, Mark, of people supporting the military as well and thanking them for, quote, protecting them from the violence. God save Chile. So that, I suppose it shows that it's not a clear-cut picture, and that there would also be people, I guess, feeling that the protests are over the top.
It seldom is, but when you show images of soldiers using batons on children, as we've just seen, it's clearly
that will be, I think, the predominant reaction online. That people are really horrified by that. This is a TV presenter based in the US, Julio Ricardo Varela, and he. So just to point out that people in the diaspora are also reacting to this a lot. I'm getting a lot of these videos sent to me from Chile. He says it looks like we are witnessing the violent and repressive acts of a right-wing government, and he says, as many are saying, that it's bringing back bad memories of the days of, I suppose, dictatorship in Chile. Lots of messages then coming, Mark, from other protest movements, such as in Hong Kong, Stand With Chile, many pointing out as well that despite Chile being a democracy and Hong Kong, I suppose, certainly increasingly under the control of China, which would not be a democracy, that there actually have been no fatalities in Hong Kong up to this point. Whatever you can take away from that, I'm not sure, but people are pointing it out. Chile, Hong Kong protesters are with you, stand with Chile. Now, reactions in France, Jean-Yves Le Drian, the foreign minister, he didn't sort of directly respond, but he did indirectly share this video from a French parliamentary channel, which is discussing whether or not France's participation in the upcoming climate summit in Santiago de Chile, the COP25, the so-called COP25, should be suspended. Others talking about that as well are the French environmentalist and MEP Yannick Jadot. Too many dead already, he says. The army is taking over the streets to repress citizens. Fighting for the climate means fighting for a project of peace and social justice. How can the UN climate summit go ahead in Santiago after what has happened, is what he is saying. Now, that's, I suppose, lots of different elements going up on social media. There was one other element that I was trying, where is it? It seems to have disappeared, Mark, but look, there's lots of stuff coming out of Chile. But as I was getting to, it's not just Chile right now.
Indeed, there seem to be a lot of demonstrations, a lot of movements around the world. I noticed the other day a Chinese media making a remark that this is the example of Hong Kong, a bad example being copied around the world, which I think was quite a leap in order to make that, and certainly a propaganda leap from their part. But tell us what you feel.
I think certainly what we're seeing, for example, in Lebanon, is the fact that there's this appeal for all the powers that be to go. There is an element of one movement being inspired by another. Certainly, it's the same sort of calls that you're seeing in Algeria, the same sort of calls that we were seeing in Sudan as well. So I think there might be. I think it's fair to say there's a contagion effect. Another point that's coming through as well is the degree to which it's often minor details that seem to be tipping people over into mass protests, when you could argue there are a lot bigger reasons to justify that. This is a tweet from a Lebanese Twitter user saying WhatsApp, because of course it was attacks on communication apps that triggered people getting into the streets. But just as in Chile, it was an increase in the price of public transport. So some of the remarks that are coming, there was a tweet I wanted to show you from Chile saying that really was just the tipping point. But this is a tweet from Lebanon saying something similar. La goutte qui fait déborder la vase. In other words, the straw that broke the camel's back. Literally, that drop of water that tips over the balance. In any case, others kind of looking to the general scene and saying, is there a global uprising, or what is going on? This is in reference to protests that were taking place in Bolivia in the last 24 hours, protests about suspicions of voting or electoral fraud, that in front of the vote counting office there. This is a journalist from Channel 4 in the UK. Countries that have pronounced anti-establishment protests this past year, and you can see that the list is a pretty long one, and it's not. And she then continues to add to it. So I think people are struck by that. Le Parisien today in this piece: protests in Chile, in Lebanon, in Catalonia, our world in I suppose in movement, in
boiling over.
boiling over. Yeah. That's exactly it. And in that article, they say, is it 2019 and 1989? There's a little bit of deja vu going on when there was just a domino effect of revolutions in 1989. But in this piece, they speak to Dominique Moissy, who is a geopolitical expert at the Institut Montaigne here in Paris. And he says, well, 30 years ago, you had a feeling that all of those dominoes were kind of going in the same direction and in maybe even the right direction. It's a much more chaotic picture now and much more difficult to sort of understand everything that's going on. That's the tweet I was looking for earlier from Chile. The Chilean iceberg, neoliberalism crisis. This, I suppose, people are trying to find the root cause of what's happening in Chile and what perhaps it might apply to other situations as well. And some people saying, well, it's rising inequalities. What we're seeing here, increased public transport costs, is simply the tip of the iceberg, according to this infographic. And it's a much more systemic problem that led to this particular point. So anyway, lots more to say on that.
But we could talk a long time, couldn't we? Because obviously so many places, as you say, having so many issues. James, we need to leave it there, I'm afraid. Thank you very much indeed. James Crew in the Media Watch. Thanks to Stephen for the business as ever. And thanks to you for watching. Stay with us. More to come here live from Paris.